I'm Tom DeLacy, Director of Spanish American Football Academy here in New York City. You are watching Field of Dreams on ACTN. Forza! Forza! Forza!
Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of Field of Dreams on ACTN. I'm Steve David and I'm your host. And today I have my panel here with me. And we're going to talk about the rights and wrong of the TTFA. Let's take time to introduce the panel. Narada Wilson, welcome to the set, Narada.
Yeah, it's always a pleasure to be here, and this should be an interesting panel discussion, as always.
And next to Narada is Larry Joseph. Welcome to the set, Larry.
Thanks again, Steve.
And next to Larry is Jefferson George. Welcome to the set, Jefferson.
Thanks. And Steve for having me. Good night, all.
Long time no see, bud.
Feels like a long time, man.
You look fresh. That's good.
Thank you very much.
Okay, you know, we had Keith Lucloy and William Wallace here a week or two ago, and we talked about the fight against FIFA and all that. And they also talked about they came into office and they want to make sure transparency, democracy, and accountability was what they push to be main thing. And for me, it looked like they live up to the word. I'm talking about TTFA, in that they're the ones who blow the whistle on some issues with Wallace and other things. So I want us to talk about that and talk about, you know, barbershop discussion about what's going on now. Because, you know, it puts everybody on the back foot like, hey, Wallace is the honest guy. And what is this going on now that his own people says, hey, we can't do this. You can't do things on your own. You can't do things that like they used to do before. So I'm going to open it up and for us to fine tune or pick that bone on what's going on and see if we can give our viewers some enlightenment on issues that we know or what we heard. But to be honest with you, we like everybody else, we're hearing things. And some of us, I hope, might know some inside stuff that we can let the viewers know.
Not me.
So let's open it up. Narada, what do you think?
Well, one of the first things is that the present group, they went up as a team.
Right.
And I think, you know, any sort of credibility, if, you know, questioned, you sort of, it affects the entire group. Because these elections, you have positions for president, vice president, and, you know, other parts, but very rarely does someone go up independently or even from another slate that may have won. It always seems to be that it's a collective win. You know, you go up as a team and the entire team won. And that team coined themselves as United TTFA. So even if the president is called out on something, you know, by even his vice president, I think it doesn't look too well for even the vice presidents because they were all elected under one slate. So you're sort of it's almost like shooting yourself in the leg, for want of a better phrase. So I don't know how much credibility, to some extent, to the public it gives in the people in your slate calling you out. It does show that you're holding some sort of standard that nobody is over the line. But because you went in collectively, I think you're also doing some damage to the collective group.
Well, you know, it's almost like stay tuned for the next chapter in this ongoing soap opera, which is Trinidad and Tobago local football. Uh, we had this series under the previous regime, which ran like a soap opera in itself. And then we had a new series with this United TTFA winning the election. And in a very short space of time, true to form, you know, soap operas throw up these very nice plots that keeps the viewer interested. And I must say that we seem to be ticking all the boxes where the interest is concerned. We came out of a very trying and traumatic regime under the last one, and we thought, at least I thought, with the result of the election, that we would see something new, fresh, different, in a good way. Only to see what's unfolding before us in a very short and quick space of time. Information is coming out now. We are wondering, did we get change or did we just exchange?
Yeah, I think I was trying to put myself in the position of a fan, Trinidad and Tobago football fan, and it must be really difficult. I mean, football and sporting fans all over the world are now reeling from, you know, the lack of activity and so on. Football is now starting to pick back up in the leagues across the world, and it seems like we are still struggling with, you know, backroom issues. And I mean, not really seeing the end of those issues that we've been having for quite some time. After the recent elections, you know, I think there was, rightly so, need for fans to be expectant and really positive, looking forward for what we're going to get on the field. The girls went out and, you know, they're just proud. And fans must have been saying, right, okay, we're turning the corner. And then, you know, back into this mess. It's really frustrating. And I mean, all we are looking for is some type of clarity. The situation with the FIFA case and all that. Now you're having the president who is accused of, you know, making some moves without board approvals and so on. So, I mean, again, we continue to look for the brighter and the better days.
You know, when Keith Lucloy and William Wallace was here, somewhere in the middle of the second segment or session, he said the local media he phrased what the local media was asleep on all that's going on, and it took the foreign media the thing to wake up. You guys remember that statement?
We have to be blind, and I want to pick up on the point about the local media. The local media, to mix the metaphors, although we playing football, has long now dropped the ball. They have dropped the ball, and all the local media is looking for is a little piece of bacchanal here and a little piece of bacchanal there, but the big story, the big story, and they don't have to take a side. They don't have to take a side, but the big story of how FIFA is handling a brand new executive and the issues that arise from that, the international media have already begun to pick up on it, will pick up on it even more, because this little Trinidad and Tobago has forced the big FIFA Goliath to respond to its case in the local court. The international media have picked up on that, and they will continue to pick up on it, while the local media are asleep.
But I guess now the local media woke up. Bad news always wake them up. So I hope he can take it now. But what went wrong? I mean, Wallace, we all felt like is a stand-up guy. He does things by the book. He crosses his T's and dots his I's. That's how I felt. And then he got caught napping into something that the old regime was doing. Is that how it played off?
for me, it is an issue of the two things. A lot of people said prior to when he was elected, that is, that he's the type of person that doesn't micromanage. So, he gives respect to those, his subordinates and those that are, authorized to take certain initiatives and just guides them along the way. So he was, having good dialogue with a lot of his vice presidents and persons in particular technical positions to go out and do what they have to do. But then you saw some of the bad side of that, where you were seeing a lot of proposals or, signatures that were said to not be, it wasn't confirmed by the persons who allegedly signed. So you started to wonder, okay, and then they cleaned it up by saying, it was some enthusiastic persons who went out and got this done. We may not have necessarily closed the deal we were in talks with. And then now it's manifested to now hearing that things that were decided within the board were kind of now decided single-handedly, altered single-handedly and not making the board aware. A lot of people go with the talk of sometimes to get things done, you may have to step forward. Even some of the persons who, are clamoring for his head and all of that have even been in those positions before. You've heard of persons, this deal has to come through or this has to go to X place, and then after, because of the time it was taken, they did something else to get it to be done fast. At the end of the day, we're all going to say that he did certain things to ensure that football was continuously progressing. But you made a decision and you were elected to represent what a board took a decision on. And I think it does lead back to leadership of almost dictator, because we said the prior president was a dictator because he went out and just did everything. But now you're having a president who agreed in a board setting, but then it was altered after. And I think he said this week, he will come out and give some more detailed information into what really transpired, because as they say, there's always three sides to a story. But I think it just led back, it gave us that flashback of what happened with prior regimes.
Yeah, it's difficult to understand how the United TTFA and the president himself could so quickly, in a short space of time, make mistakes that you associated with the regime that you dethroned. Because you ran on a platform of transparency and accountability, and you were able to harness support from a wide section of the community, not just within the United TTFA, but in terms of supporters and fans and shareholders, because people had gotten tired and fed up of the last regime and how they operated. And then in a very, very quick space of time, the very said thing you campaigned against, you are being accused, and not just from external parties, but from within your own United Party. So that is, that is absolutely ridiculous. I cannot defend somebody like that. I'm wondering, when you look at the information that's coming out now, in terms of some contracts being signed unilaterally, and not just unilaterally, some contracts that when you look at its wording, could not have gotten past a first-year legal person. It tells me something was drastically wrong within that structure of that United TTFA. I personally believe they were victims of their own success. I think when you look at some of the things that they instituted immediately upon winning the election, they went about trying to undo everything that the last regime did in such a quick space of time to try to win mass public acceptance that they dropped their level of attention in terms of proper protocols and procedures, thinking that they had the momentum of winning the election and that kind of thing. But unfortunately, the goalpost should not move when you're dealing with transparency and accountability. That goalpost is always stagnant, always stationary, and that's where you work from. And no, don't move it to suit your fancies. And I am not sorry for them. I'm not sorry for them, because when you aspire to be the head of an organization as big as TTFA, which in terms of sport in Trinidad is the biggest sport in Trinidad, is the biggest sport in the world. We've had spotlight on football leading up to the election. And then you won the election, and in no short space of time, you come and do this nonsense. Take what you get.
I agree with Larry there in terms of having run a campaign. I think we would have been looking forward to what was announced. Even in the lead up in their campaign, they were more transparent than most, and not something that we would have been accustomed to in terms of press releases on time, information being given to the public would be, whole information. It wouldn't be parts or parcels of information coming out, one after the other type of thing. So we were all expecting that would have continued into the administration. But again, the principles that were set out, obviously there are now reports that those were not followed. And that is something that, within the space of 3-4 months, it is something that now you have to really to answer for. And it is legitimate questions that are being asked, and so far the answers have not been sufficient, I don't believe.
I'm going to get into the nitty gritty, right? Yeah. I'm not going to let you guys off the hook by dancing around some of the things we're going to have to get. But I'm laying the platform for the second segment when I want us to talk about some of the issues that we've heard. But to continue on the note, in Wallace and Keith Lucloy segment, but episode when they were here with us, Wallace also talked about the shutting down of the home of football, and the local media and everybody else was quick to say, well, how come they shut it down? And the COVID-19 thing came up, and it was all ready to receive people. And Wallace's point was, hey, you guys didn't look at how much 100 soldiers that they brought down and how much time was put into it, and they didn't quantify all that work, and all that, which he had a great point. It was a good point, yeah. Because they did a lot of work to bring it up to scratch, and that would have cost them that much money that they wasn't getting or they don't have to do it. So, they made great points, and they did very well on all of that stuff that they talked about. So I give them credit for that. I'm going to take a break now, but when we come back, we have to say what we heard, and then put it out there so we can see how we can inform our viewers and inform the public about what's going on. Viewers, will be right back after the short break.
If you say you get a sponsorship from a kit dealer, but you have to pay and sell a certain amount of kit before you get some money, I'm like, eyes not the.
We, from those encounters together, and this was a North-South game to open the season.
So the team might be playing well, as we always say with Trinidad and Tobago.
Futsal did that great for me.
Okay, hey everybody. Welcome to another edition of Field of Dreams on ACTN. My name is Steve David. I'm your host. Okay, welcome back, viewers. Like I was saying, guys, let's break down piece by piece what we've heard about this whole thing. I am not going to say nothing. I'm going to let you guys talk first. All right?
Yeah. For me, one of the things that, one of the things that I think was a bit disturbing was one of the parties that was, involved in some of the negotiations. I think on a previous at the previous time, questions were asked about the involvement of particular persons, that reside abroad who had some, interactions in Trinidad and Tobago football at club and national level. And this person's involvement was just, it was said or told to the public that it was just a mild involvement that may have just, dealt with just procuring and stuff like that. And then, months later, we get to find out that it was actually a possibility of contractual, arrangements or agreements. Now, the two things that are interesting about that is that these things happened around the time that you were campaigning about being transparent and putting information into the public domain, because we're finding out about it 6 months later. But these deals were done 1 month, 2, 3 months into office, before the normalization committee was appointed. So it means that, the questions were valid at the time being asked, but the answers given were not technically or 100% true. And, some of the explanations given was that the person asked for confidentiality. I don't think confidentiality is the same as saying no and a mild agreement. Simply could have just said it's not something that I'm willing to discuss, or, you just give that kind of open statement that we all know politicians use to say, cannot confirm or nor deny. And that for me, in my little time in football, because I say little only because I'm comparing myself with those that are around in that boardroom, my time is probably, less than half in some cases. And I've heard of these individuals and sort of, I don't want to say stigmatize the person to say that they will continue to be the way they are. But I think if somebody has done wrong to a country or an entity, it should not be the first person you go back to. Maybe if you say the person did right, but not that great, you can go back. But I think doing wrong or having a negative impact, I saw the articles about them affecting other clubs in the United Kingdom. And then you're saying, why would I even want that? And I've constantly said this, and I've said it before, that I think persons that we want involved in our football should have a proven track record in having some sort of success. So at least in the end, you could say it's because of this. I am seeing somebody that didn't have success, but I'm using them in my country. It leads me to wonder, when the failure happens, what do I blame it on?
Yeah, that was one of the red flags that I picked up in the information that was put out in the public domain. Another one that raised a red flag for me was the whole kit deal that was horridly put out into the public with a lot of pomp and ceremony. But when I looked at some of the details that they disseminated to us, I'm like, if you say you're getting sponsorship from a kit dealer, but you have to pay and sell a certain amount of kit before you get some money, I'm like, I is not the brightest bulb in the room, but my understanding of sponsorship is that the person who coming in will put their money or their kind, and out of that they will get some sort of return. And then when I looked at some of the numbers, and I'm like, sports and games had to sell X amount a national team jersey. I'm like, we rank 105th. It are people don't even know what the national team jersey look like. And you go in and sign an agreement that says you will sell, I can't remember the exact figure, but it was an unrealistic figure in the culture of the national team results. So, and you see them posing for pictures and trumpeting this deal that makes it look like it's a great deal. That was an insult to my limited intelligence. How that was able to get past people on the inside is beyond me. So that's why I jumped to the conclusion that they were victims of their own success at the election, where they thought they had some momentum. So they dropped the guard and they allowed people to come in who they thought would be representing them going forward to help them make some money and all that. But listen, you are in the business of football. You're supposed to know of some things about the business of football.
Right.
The mistakes they make, just looking at the kit deal, is for somebody who have a clue about anything. And you, are the bastions of football for Trinidad and Tobago, you know. This is the point I'm making here. You are representing football in Trinidad and Tobago across the CONCACAF and across the world. And just at the beginning of your tenure, you make simple, ridiculous mistakes like that. Absolutely ridiculous.
But that wasn't a Wallace issue, was it? That was like a United
No,
TTFA issue?
that whole kit deal is another one where they said that he went ahead and
did?
okayed.
Okay.
And
You
I-
understand?
And I think just to add to Larry's point, you know, it even shows that I remember when the deal came out, everybody has access to internet. Today people are curious, people are home, they have time. You could go on and you could look for the information and you would see League Two, which is like a 4th division in England, being maybe 2 teams. It's not even in comparison to when we were with Joma, where I remember looking and you would see about 25 teams that were on that deal, whether it was the biggest or not. The point is you can find the information. What made me question the deal was that we were buying this kit at X price. So that means we're putting money out there. If that was the case, we could have just invested in a local company and just give them the money, because the deal did not come down as a sponsorship where we were benefiting in any realistic way. So then if we're already going to spend, then I don't see any problem with just saying, just spend locally, ask maybe, you know, I'm just putting it out there, Rossi or some local group to just make the kits because we're already just buying it. So, you know.
Yeah, because I mean, eyebrows were raised when I heard the name of the company, Avec. I like, who is them? Okay, I don't assume that I know all the kit sponsors in the world.
And we also know
but
our
a
position.
cursory examination and background check would have showed nobody knew about these people. And some of the claims are made about them, some teams wearing the uniform and all. That was not true. By a simple background check would have shown that information was not true. So that should have raised 2 red flags. But no due diligence was done, right? And they're paying the price for it now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's quite a hefty price as well, because that is something, that I said, you have an administration who is coming in. Now, again, all the things that were outlined, these are things that are in the public domain. Why did 68 we attribute for most of the information that we got, particularly from Wallace's end. And these things on its own would not have been a fatal blow to any administration, really, who is up and running. But coming into an environment where we know it's cash-strapped, we know that we've just came out of a period of, you know, really unsettling things, right? Head coach being an issue, no results on the field, you know, so it feels compounded. It feels like another issue that holds us back instead of, you know, pushing us in the direction where we want to go. And added to that, again, as I said, coming in where people are now expecting that the operations would be a lot different, right? That the operations would be open, we would be transparent, we'd have deals that benefit us rather than, you know, hurt us. And then to get some of the details, it really, really asks the question as to where did things really fall off, you know? And I think Rona rather say Mr. Wallace is supposed to make to add some context to the information that we already have, and I think that would be eagerly anticipated.
Isn't that the deal that padded Fenwick's salary to up it up to 2,000, 20,000 instead of
because
17?
it's so many deals to some extent that, you know, is attributed to one person linking in 2 or 3 situations.
Mm-hmm.
But in terms of the head coach, you know, there's a figure that is out there of 17.5
right,
for Mr. Fenwick's salary. But Mr. Fenwick was represented by this person in this capacity as the person acted as an agent to negotiate the other part of his salary, which would have been an additional 2.5,
yeah.
which they said they would have gotten from someone. There's another article that came out after that saying that someone was the said agent who may have been receiving from the TTFA, and he would now take it out of his salary. So if he was receiving 20,000 from TTFA, he's now going to take 2.5 put it to Fenwick, and then they joined the two. But I think what ties it is more or less what Larry said with they were riding this momentum of getting everything right to the public. I think they had their ears on the ground, so they knew what the public wanted. The public has been clamoring a long time for Mr. Fenwick to be the head coach of the national team. The public may have clamored for a long time for us to get back a sponsor since we lost out with the Joma. We had something kind of in between. And what they were more interested in is continuing to be the public-pleasing organization.
Right.
And I think what may have happened with Mr. Wallace is that he was seeing at the point, Terry Fenwick, he's qualified, he would have made his negotiations, he had someone acting on his behalf, may have been pressuring that this deal could have fallen short because he wanted the total that he wanted. And what Mr. Wallace maybe did, if your board only agreed to up to this level, is say, I need to get him at all costs. And I went somewhere else. It's just, I think, in that anticipation and in that anxiety, due diligence wasn't done as to where this money is coming from, who is covering it, how are we so sure he can, and if my board is even going to be okay with that arrangement. I think that is the smoking gun there with that deal that they did. Deals, sorry.
Yeah, I can't get away from the fact that everything that the last regime was accused of doing
that's the problem. I think,
in less than 6 months, less than 5 months,
you
are doing it. So I don't know what you can say now that could undo the damage that has already been done. And then you have the details of some of the deals that were signed off on, and it just makes the situation even worse. Because the only people who seem to be benefiting from all these deals is individuals, not footballers, not the game, not the sport, not the organization. And that is what is so disappointing because to me, regardless if I had any names in the hat that I wanted to see run Trinidad football, it's just looking at it from this perspective. Okay, we had a regime that was in charge for a certain amount of years, and it didn't look like if they was doing so good from all appearances. Election is coming up. Election always brings anticipation, especially if there's a hue and a cry about who the present sitting people who are there not doing too well. So there's an expectation that maybe if the old lose and the new wins, we will have a breath of fresh air sweeping across the organization. And that is the position I was in when the election came and the results was known. That we have fresh people, so we would get away from the old. And in less than 3 months, I'm still looking at the old. Come on.
But Jeff, I mean, they are the ones who blew the whistle.
No, well,
on their own actions.
I'd like to follow up on something, a point that Narada made with some of the details. Now, looking at what they were, and I'm saying Wallace in this term being the one who would have signed off on the negotiations. Now, if the expectation is to have someone, because the rationale given was they didn't want to have, they didn't want to keep a marketing department in-house. They would contract that service to somebody and pay them a commission. That makes sense.
Yeah.
But I'm saying, the logic behind it, it makes sense.
Yeah.
It's a more feasible way to do things, especially seeing that you're cash strapped.
Yeah.
But what I think I would have been looking for is a commitment of delivery, right? If this person is to bring X amount, or what is he going to deliver, those things aren't quite clear. And Narada mentioned, based on the track record of the individual, we possibly not sure if that would be delivered anyway. So again, commitments were made to financially commit the TTFA without a guarantee of having, a means of payment.
A high
And-
percentage of success
yeah,
in the marketing
and I
arena.
think that is where there's a lot of clarity to be given in that regard. In terms of the negotiations and so on, in themselves or by themselves, there's not much to cry about if those things are to be fulfilled.
Agreed.
You understand what I'm saying? So the marketing person comes in, he gets 4 or 5 sponsors coming in for you, bringing in X amount of US, and within that period, all well and good.
Yeah.
All right? The ends justify the means, basically. But in this case, you have a situation where nothing is being delivered in the dark, in where that is concerned. But the TTFA is committed to what has been seen as exorbitant fees to be paid out to coaches.
Well, it has not been exorbitant. If we look at the marketing person himself, based on the information in the public domain, he has a contract for a sum that is more than the head coach.
Right.
And you looking through my shades, I can't see any money coming in, but I could sure see how much going out. So it makes no sense. It makes absolutely no sense, especially as more information comes out into the public domain as to some of the deals that were made.
Agreed. What I'm saying is context could be added. If, okay, we know based on documents that has been revealed that this is what the marketing person was supposed to get. Context could be him coming out and saying, all right, I had this deal, I would have gotten $2 billion US from X over the next year commitment, right? And then, again, that now puts context to that 20 because, you can see where it was going to come from. That's my point. And again, I believe that was the structure of
and I think
the deal.
it will go back to what you said initially. If we got 25 million in sponsorship and I knew we were paying a guy 20,000 US, I may not have a problem about it. The problem was when we realized this 25 million wasn't entirely coming in cash or in the equipment, we're seeing that we have to now spend even more to try and get some sense of that. Then we realize that deal isn't as we think it is. So we're just, as you say, we're spending more than we even earning on these.
Yeah, and I'm trying to look at the rationale in
Wait,
terms of
rationale when we come back. All right, we need to take a break. Viewers will be right back after the short break.
This is like a car company selling a car that has a 1-year warranty and some manager just deciding to give 2 years. What happens if this car breaks down in the year and a half and the person who has the car says, well, I want it replaced because I have a contract?
I just saw you playing out there and you look real good. Who are you?
Well, I'm Lucas Kisa. I'm the best footballer point to see.
Oh, really? You know any of the older players who play here?
Well, I know Warren Akibal, Leroy Delia.
Stop. You know me? Boy, I was the best striker, the best forward that this country ever seen.
Oh, Wilfred Kane.
Boy, I'm Steve David, boy. Okay, welcome back, viewers. Larry, I'll let you make your point, and then we'll move on to.
Yeah, I was just going to say, based on what Jeff was saying and Narada was alluding to, is, why get in so soon, knowing what you replaced, and not have people to do due diligence in terms of going over every deal that you are going to enter into, so that you do not repeat the mistakes of the last regime. That's the point
I'll
I was
say
just
this,
trying to
Larry,
make.
just to help you out with it. And it goes back to me saying that because we don't treat football as a business, they are not people who are full-time employed in this, in terms of the decision makers. So what is happening is that if Mr. Wallace is presented with an opportunity at 3 o'clock in the morning, and your board are all, working elsewhere, they're probably not going to respond to you until their jobs are over. And in any other situation, in most times the MLS, there's a CEO or whatever who's running these organizations or a group of people that could make commitments to deals because it's from the business perspective. He may have needed an answer to say yes or no, we need a kit deal. This offer came on the table. Nobody went to approve anything, and it was the same thing the administration before was accused of, and even a lot of persons in football in Trinidad have been accused of over the years.
Okay. There is two people, the secretary and the coach. Yeah. To me, is very much in the middle and all of this stuff that's going on. I want us to talk about that. And even I had somebody sent me a WhatsApp with, it's funny how Keith Lukloy made the point about our media was asleep and now we wake them up. And I saw something from someone, I think it's on WhatsApp, where the guy scored the penalty, coming all the way down by Fenwick to celebrate, give him the shoulder. Yeah. And all of a sudden, all of that is back in the limelight again. And Latapi, I think, was saying he should never be coach and all of that. And I had said I think Fenwick should get a chance, and I still do. Yeah. And they shouldn't bring out all this dirt, but all this dirt is coming out now. Yeah, so let's talk about all of that.
My personal take on at least with the two hirings, the General Secretary, Mr. Ramdan, as well as Terry Fenwick. To me, I believe they aren't wrong or culpable in these situations because they just got terms and conditions that they would have wanted. Anybody would want, that. I think the problem is you would want, a board has to approve that. In any situation, it's the board that actually has to feel disappointed, or us, the public, if we were, involved in that set. Mr. Ramdan, in a board discussion, was presented as an excellent candidate for this position with a one-year contract is what we could afford. Let's see how things go. Maybe we'll extend after or renegotiate. We'll have to come back on it. The board agreed to that. Well, actually, I think it was put forward for more, but they couldn't, and they agreed to the 1 year to try it out. Mm-hmm. But then we find out he has 2 years. He obviously would have sat with Mr. Wallace and made his arrangement. And, just as Mr. Downer said, who, has contributed to the Constitution, it makes sense to have him for 2 years because you don't want to do 1 year and then have to come back again and you change somebody and things that might have been in the pipeline stop. He would have now been getting into a job in 1 year and fixing whatever is done. But you also said that you were going to be transparent. Now, the public, may not care if Mr. Ramdan is there or not there because it doesn't really affect me directly what he does and doesn't do. But in terms of the board, in terms of the stakeholders, they want to know, do I have confidence that the General Secretary is there for a year or 2 years? You said a year, and then we're seeing 2 years. And then Mr. Fenwick, in what he wanted, he would have wanted whatever salary he could want. He could want 50,000 US. But you can't come to a board and tell me we agreed to one figure, and then we find out on the outside that there's another figure. I would have preferred that the board came and said, we knew it was the higher figure, but we kept it under wraps because, it was a board decision that was made. But having now your board, 80% of your board saying they knew nothing, I think that doesn't spell too well for what is happening in camp.
Yeah, there isn't very much I could add to that because that's in the public domain, and the only thing I could say in terms of the Ramesh Randan situation, okay, I understand what you're saying, where, you could have this private discussion as the president with the secretary in terms of his tenure and the length of his tenure. And if you agree to something different than what was agreed to by the board, how long does it take you in this time of digital technology to either send a phone to talk to your RSA board members or send a WhatsApp, which I'm sure they have a group that says, okay, I met with the General Secretary and we discussed the terms and this is the updated. How long is that going to take? So you can't come and tell me now that you make the deal with the man and you didn't inform the board because maybe you was too busy and you couldn't meet. Who meets anymore? Yeah. Everybody meets on technology. Yeah. So,
Yeah, again, what was done, I don't think is so much of the issue as to how it was done, right? I agree with Narada. The negotiating part of a coach, that's up to him. He would call for what he believes he's valued. If it's 100,000, you know, that's what he believes he's valued. But to have a agreement agreed and ratified by a board, and then having a contract signed, again, these are things that are already in the public domain. Having a contract signed for a higher figure, that there's an issue there. There's clearly an issue there, right? And the board not knowing until the day that is revealed and so on. Yeah, that doesn't sit too well. On the general secretary, again, there may, based on the explanation, he may have believed that he had some more leeway there to extend the tenure, his tenure to a 2-year instead of the 1-year deal. And again, in itself, justifiably so, you can believe that you need some more time. 1 year doesn't really give you much to accomplish some of the things that you might have set out to do. And having a general secretary who is an important part of the day-to-day operations of your administration, you may want to have secured him for an additional year.
Yeah.
Again, no problems with that. But why was it, why was the information withheld from the board? Those are the pertinent questions.
And I'll even add this. We're probably fortunate that these things are coming out now when it's on a downtime, or even a normalization committee could possibly be the ones running it. So we may not necessarily have any lawsuits coming back and forth. But let's think back to times before. Mr. Raymond Timke, God rest his soul, had a problem with his general secretary at the time, Sheldon Phillips, that they butted heads to a point where firing happened and who has authorization to do or not to do, that then even led to a lawsuit, right? That I think, I'm not even sure if that is even resolved yet.
No, I don't think
Then
so.
we had Mr. David John Williams, who came into a situation. He had Latter P. George as his general secretary, who was there from before, wanting to bring in someone else, brought in Mr. Kamara David, and there was a challenge there about wrongful, appointment and all sorts of things, but then being told that, well, it's on his decision to call or whatever the case is. Even when now this administration came in, meeting Mr. David there, even putting him out and then having to kind of settle some things and then have him resign to then bring in some. So for me, it's always, you've seen the situation happen time and time again. Why wouldn't you cross your T's and dot all your I's to ensure that this is fine? This is like a car company selling a car that has a 1-year warranty and some manager just deciding to give 2 years. What happens if this car breaks down in the year and a half and the person who has the car says, well, I want it replaced because I have a contract, but the CEO of the company doesn't know that the company offered a 2-year contract? This could have blown up in our face if a year and a half from now, Mr. Ramdan somebody said something to hiring or firing him, and then he said, well, I have a legitimate contract, and then we in debt to pay him because he does have a contract and nobody knew about it. So
yeah, and I understand in the business world, in the trust and to and froing and
the gentleman's agreements and all
that
of
kind of thing. And I understand such an important position as general secretary, you need some stability in terms of your length of tenure. And I could understand that. The board said that, seeing that they now come into power, let's do short-term deals while we get our feet under what's happening around us, and then we would look at extending. If the president decides in his wisdom or lack of, as the case may be, that's fine. That's also acceptable. But what I'm saying is that you should not do it in secret, because you run under the umbrella of United TTFA, right? When you look at all their public presentations, it was never one of them by themselves. It was always all
united,
of them,
right?
Mr. Wallace and Lucloy.
Yeah.
You understand what I mean? And then you come now, and okay, no problem with your general secretary. You want to extend it. We understand the position is so important. 1 year is just enough time to find out what's going on. You need that. That's fine, and people will understand that. But how long is it going to take you to just WhatsApp your other board members to say, listen, I had a discussion with the General Secretary and I'm proposing. You understand what I'm saying?
And I think only unless, because he said he's going to speak, unless he could say that he did send it in the group and nobody responded and he went ahead with a decision, that is the only thing I could see. Because I'm hearing that, there's another side to the story that he could probably say, I put it forward. But then again, as you all said, technology is there. I am sure one at least would have said yes or no to give support or not on something like that. I think we do it for everything else, but somehow when it comes to politics and business in the public, we always have this defense because it goes to politicians as well who never seen a clip or didn't see something that clearly all of us saw it, and you see everything today. So how come, you didn't take the opportunity to benefit from these uses of technology?
How do you guys think this is going to all end? What's your personal assessment on the...
Well, the credibility of the United TTFA has taken a hit because they are actually imploding. They're not exploding, they are imploding, right? So whatever credibility they had when they won the election, that is now gone through the window, right? And I don't know if all that's happening in the public domain is going to have an effect in terms of the case that they have taken up in the courts. Because I know the courts and the legal people don't really look at what goes on in the public to make decisions. But in the court of public perception, the United TTFA has lost all credibility. And I know people just are more welcoming to the FIFA Normalization Committee now than they probably would have been when they did come in because of what's happening with this united front now.
Yeah, and it's important to bring up that, Steve, because those are two separate issues. Now, we tend to kind of draw them in, and I've seen people, try to bungle it as one issue. But the court case actually may be even now more important because in order to get closure on this, there needs to be, we need to know who actually running this, you know, so that we can fix things. Because obviously there are things that need to happen. And as it exists with the normalization committee and what have you, it doesn't seem very clear because you ask what is going to happen. And from where we sit, I guess we have no clue. Right? We're going to have to wait for that to begin to work out. No, but
your personal feeling and how it's...
No, but say it.
Like Larry said, the public is going to lose
Definitely.
faith.
Definitely. I believe based on what has happened and what is already in the public domain, the public has already, lost that sort of goodwill that it would have had towards United TTFA going in. Because, again, as I said, we sound like a broken record, but you said you were sorting this stuff out. You were going to be different.
Let me tell you why. I mean, because they blow the whistle on the president, I think that shows that they are walking the talk, that they said they build it on X, Y, and Z. Yeah. So I think it's not like this leak out. They're the ones who say, hey, this happened, and we stand up to it, and this can't happen. So why I don't lose faith in them. I still have faith in them.
Yeah, I think it is like any other voting pattern in, I guess, a Westminster's system. Mr. Wallace is the head of the organization. Anybody underneath you, we said, okay, we don't want him there, or we vote against whatever he has done. I don't see who the mantle falls on. The problem is, it's the entire organization is now corrupted in the public's opinion. Right. Because even if we throw it onto a vice president or something, people are not going to be forgiving of it, because in the public domain from the media, it's still going to come out as
Right.
the United TTFA, who did this and who went through this, is now calling for this. It loses credibility even in your voters who actually have a vote. Some of the guys are still going to say object to certain things because of persons still being involved. For me, I actually think it gives credibility to the normalization committee, because that is the only group that we are seeing that supposedly is fresh faces, that people will just totally go the opposite way. It's how we vote, and that may actually happen. When one disappoints, we just go immediately to the other one. And I think in this, to stay in the situation, not many people will do it.
All right. Any closing? Anything else?
Well, I hope the next time we sit here to talk football, we have a more clearer direction for our local game, regardless of how that is. And we're not discussing if, buts, and maybes, because, again, the only thing that has been positive for the local game, and this is so ironic, is the COVID-19, in that it has shut down the game while we have shut down the game. But it can't stay so for long, and we just, Trinidad and Tobago football just needs to be back up and running by people, organization that loves the sport more than they love themselves.
Okay. And for Brent Sancho, Brent, don't discredit, but let the chips fall where they may. You keep trying. It looks like you're looking for a job thing. I'm telling you, stay out of this. Let the chips fall where they may. Don't discredit. Let the people be the judge. Thank you guys for being here. I appreciate you so much. Thank you, ACTN, for giving us the opportunity. Thank you, viewers, for tuning in every Monday night. And you know we do repeat on a Tuesday at 1, if you miss it on Monday night at 8 o'clock. And we have a Facebook page. You can always check us out. We have an email address, fieldofdreamtt@gmail.com. You can drop us a line. The show is ended. Go in peace. My name is Steve Davis. Good night.